If you're navigating entrepreneurship as a person with neurodivergence, let's be honest, there's not a lot of rooms for us. There are not a lot of spaces designed specifically for us. And this is why Esther and I sat together for a podcast interview. And it's not just a podcast interview, it's a carefully curated masterclass where we address the emotional spending, the rejection sensitivity disorder, how hypnotherapy can actually empower entrepreneurs with neurodivergence to navigate entrepreneurial landscape and navigate business from more grounded and integrated place. You're here for a treat. Esther is an amazing coach. She is a specialist who works with neurodivergent people and helps them with money management. I highly recommend you to save this episode and come back to it because we are dropping practical steps, practical tools that you can use right now in everyday life. You're here for a treat. I will link the original episode on Esther's podcast here in the show notes. And if you would like to connect with me or with Esther, all the links are in the podcast episode description or YouTube episode description, depending where you're watching from or listening from. Enjoy. You're here for a treat. This episode is going to bless you.
So welcome, Eugene. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. For listeners that are meeting you for the first time, can you share a bit about yourself, the work that you do, and how neurodivergence has shown up in your life and business journey?
Of course. Well, Esther, thank you so much for having me on the show. And I truly appreciate our connection. We followed each other's journey like it was absolutely wonderful. So, a little bit about myself. I am a business mentor and a certified hypnotherapist. Also, in my previous career, I was working as a clinical psychologist. And what I do now, I've been looking into coaching space, a place where, like, if a therapy in coaching, business mentorship had a baby, what would that be when entrepreneurs can actually attune their subconscious mind, their nervous system with the strategy that actually fits them, not because it sounds or looks good on somebody else, but what fits them in this season. And, we have different seasons. So that's what I do. Like, I do enjoy building people up. I do enjoy leading. I do enjoy teaching. So it's like a combination because, like, when I was sitting with myself, like, what do I really want to do? Do I want to, like, I'm a very strategic person. Like, I love the strategy, but also years in therapy, years in counseling, and that beautifully combines with a strategy, nervous system. And really, apparently, what I'm hearing from a lot of people in the business space, this is what a lot of people crave. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of spaces led by professionals who have background in neuroscience and psychology that actually combine those worlds together. So, and that's what I do.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think it's really where, like you said, it's not that common, where you have business owners and you have psychologists or therapists, and they've always been kind of separate. But what I love about what you do is you merge the two together and you do it so wonderfully. So just to let the audience know, how I met you, I came across your account on Instagram a few years ago, and I've been following you ever since. And recently, your content really stood out to me. Being an adult diagnosed neurodivergent myself, I've been learning more about the nervous system, my subconscious, just rewiring my brain essentially as somebody who is a late diagnosed ADHDR. And your content really resonated with me. Plus, you also talk about business. So I get to have the best of both worlds. So, Eugene, from your background as a clinical psychologist and a therapist, can you explain what's actually happening in the nervous system when somebody with ADHD, like myself, feels overwhelmed, unfocused, or stuck? And in practical terms, what does it mean to regulate the nervous system? I talk about that a lot on my podcast. I am not a psychologist. I am not a therapist, but from the little that I know that I'm, learning on myself, I feel like you would be the best person on this podcast, for our audience to learn from. But especially for business owners who want to perform well without burning themselves out. I had to quit my business at one point because of burnt out. And I guess if you were talking to the Esther, maybe a year ago, how would you explain what's happening with the nervous system? If it makes sense.
Yeah, and this is a really good question because a phrase regulated nervous system, regulate your nervous system, thrown so much in coaching space. And we really don't know what it means. And especially people with ADHD, which I'm also a late diagnosed person with ADHD. I always knew, but at the age of 37, 38, I decided to actually go and through a diagnosis procedure and confirm or deny if I have that diagnosis and I have that diagnosis. So nervous system regulation specifically for people with ADHD. So what it means, I think it's important for us to know a little bit of a background with ADHD, right? We have such as so-called executive function. So executive function is when we can execute something. And with ADHD, often, if not most of the time, we have a disconnection or disconnect with our executive function in one form or another. How it shows up, we know what we need to do. It can show up in career, it can show up in housework. For me, it shows up in household laundry, chores, dishes. I look really well put together. Like, don't look at my desk right now because it is a disaster. So it is like I moved to a new apartment probably 6 months ago. It looks like I just moved. The struggle is real. And this is one way where we nervous system gets dysregulated because we know what we need to do. We're not doing it because there is a disconnect, right? Like that's one specifically for ADHD, people with ADHD, right? When our nervous system starts to run on overdrive, it's like imagine if you driving a car and you press gas and stop at the same time and your engine is burning out. This is dysregulation specifically with ADHD people, but nervous system regulation in general. It's when your nervous system fine tuned to perform without overdrive in a particular environment in a way that you can safely, calmly, like navigate the situation. It's not about just being relaxed. It's not about just being always in this meditative state and grounded, because sometimes like right now I can't be in meditative state because we're recording a podcast, right? I have to perform, I have to show up. So but also I can do it without overdrive of my nervous system. I can calm my nervous system, I can fine tune my nervous system, I can call on neural connections, or in ego states and ego states therapy, it's called ego states, that will support me at the moment. And the way people with ADHD, specifically entrepreneurs and high achieving professionals, can do it, first of all, organize your environment for success. When you know that you're like you have a problem with executive function, right? So for example, my example, I know that I need to do like dishes, so I actually put it on the calendar. I actually put it on the calendar and I just do it. And because I know that I needed this dopamine hit, and it's not out of pleasure or because I'm lazy or because I just need like extra motivation. It's just how my brain works. So I find really parts of that routine that I will enjoy, whether it is listening to a podcast and doing housework, whether it is doing like whatever, like reward system too, something that I really enjoy doing. For example, let's say I'm really behind on housework, but I do enjoy creating content. I tell myself, hey, like you won't be able to running your content and business until you are done with dishes. Also, like for activities that are not pleasant, I normally schedule them on the focus time. I hate paying bills. It's like, I mean, it sounds silly, but it's just something that I really, really struggle with. So I schedule a specific time in a day where I won't do anything else after that. So like I can allow myself just to be hot mess for a second. I do the activities, I schedule them, and then I allow myself unstructured time to actually pull myself together. So, like whether it is meditating or scheduling time for doom scrolling, schedule time for doom scrolling, because this is something that I enjoy, is watching silly videos that don't make sense, cat videos, whatever. But again, it is on the timer. And time works wonderful for for majority of people with neurodivergence, whether it is autism, whether it is ADHD. Like when we have structured systems, structured time, that actually helps with executive function, and it helps us to accomplish what we need to accomplish. And also define the definition of done, not the definition of perfect, because done is always better than perfect. So like that's basically it.
I absolutely love that. So you touched on so many great things. I feel like you and I, when it comes to dishes, I didn't realize that I didn't enjoy washing dishes until my husband hurt his finger. And I didn't realize how much dishes my husband did until he hurt his finger and until I had to do the dishes. And similarly to you, you will not find me doing dishes if I'm not listening to a podcast or something that's going to engage my brain where I'm not paying attention to the dishwashing. And what you shared about recovery time, that you would give yourself time to recover after doing a task you might not particularly enjoy, or your brain just doesn't want to do it. I think that's really important, because it's helping to take you from a state maybe of displeasure to pleasure, where maybe your dopamine hit reduces whilst doing the dishes, but because of that recovery time, you're able to get yourself back to that kind of good place. I did a survey actually. So when I got my ADHD diagnosis, and I realized, oh my gosh, this makes sense why I've been so bad with finances all my life. And I said, I wonder if I'm the only one, because it's the first time I'm learning about ADHD. So I put out a survey on LinkedIn, and it was actually part of my university market research project that I did over the summer. I put this survey on LinkedIn, and I was only expecting 50 people, but I said I needed 100, and I didn't even think I'll get 20, but 368 people to date have completed that survey. And I am telling you, the statistics from that is just shocking, in terms of so many ADHDers and also other neurodivergents like dyslexia, dyspraxia, the challenges that they face around managing finance. It's very common, and it has everything to do with the nervous system. It has everything to do with stress and overwhelm and burnt out and executive function and having to do admin tasks. So you're definitely not alone there, because I think everybody that filled that survey out highlighted an area of their finances, and they were particularly business owners as well that struggle not just with the finance aspect of them being an ADHD, but also the business aspect. And this is why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because you speak to the business owner, you speak to the executive function, and all of the other things. So thank you so much for touching and sharing on that. And you did share some of your story, but I wonder if you could share a moment in your business, or your career, where your ADHD made things really difficult, or where learning to regulate your nervous system changed everything for you.
So on the one hand, I was fairly lucky in terms of like ADHD not affecting me in my career space for majority of the time. Where it affects me with ADHD, we have this like rejection sensitivity disorder. So when we experience any type of rejection, that feels a little bit more tender than usual for us. So for me in business specifically, and it's so funny because like when people say no, let's say on the sales call or in the DMs, I feel it a little bit more than neurotypical people would do. And again, like it may be just similar for everyone, but for me, it is like, oh, I must not be good enough, right? Like that subconscious whisper. So, what really helped me to regulate with that is reframe how I show up because people, they're not saying no to me, they're saying no to my business. Meaning, business, it's not me, it's something that I created. And if people say no to my business, either they're wrong people or maybe it is not right now because when I'm ready to sell, it doesn't mean that everybody is ready to buy like at the moment when I'm ready to sell. And I actually enjoy sales calls and consultation and consultative calls because gives me information for my content because until I talk to a living, breathing human being that tells me no, I can create adequate content for my business. I can address their pain points. And even if it is not right now or if it is not for me, like I can address those pain points in my content, in my messaging, and refine it even more. So that's how it shows up in my business specifically and in my professional career. I'm very determined, right? And as people with ADHD, when we're hyper focused on something, we can achieve tremendous results. And I feel and have so much compassion for professionals and business owners where ADHD hits directly in the business, directly in the career. I know it is hard, but again, structuring your day, structuring your business, structuring your activity in a way that is manageable, then like this is the cure. And it may, and also being kind to yourself because it might be a little bit slower for you to go to the next milestone than for anybody else, and that's perfectly fine. I'd rather you to get to the mountain slow and steady than you just burn yourself out and quit the mountain and just go to the valley again and then you climb the mountain again. So
And I think it's important that you touched on that because there are many ADHDers who are high functioning, in the professional field, in corporate world. And so sometimes you won't even tell because they just get on with things. And like you said, it's where they find an interest area that they enjoy and they thrive in. And this is why I think for many neurodivergents, it's really important to be in the right career so that you can function in your natural state and gift and you're not burning out and masking and trying to be in a neurotypical state of mind. So yeah, thanks for touching on that because sometimes the misconception can be, the ADHDers can't hold a job. In the UK, there are some stats, but I believe it's more on the younger side of, neurodivergence. There's a high number of neurodivergents not entering in employment. I think it's a lot difficult for the younger people now because of mental health and everything that's going on. But yeah, ADHDers can thrive in their workplace. And gosh, you really touched me when you said about the rejection sensitivity disorder. When you said that, I was like, oh gosh, is that what it's called? So I remember when I used to run launches and, you put out a wait list and people would join the wait list and you get excited about the numbers and you're like, yay, I've got 30 people that have joined the wait list. I only need 5 for my coaching, launch. The numbers look right. And then you open doors and then it's crickets. And I used to take that so personal. I remember my first launch. I was so upset. I took it so personal. But like you said, they're not rejecting you per se. It could just be that they're not ready for the offer at that moment, or it could be something within my messaging which I learned later that I needed to improve. It could be that I needed to nurture them for a little bit longer. So framing is really important for us as business owners, and especially to succeed in our business.
I don't let people get away with a no. Like, right? Because
Mm,
like when people join my wait list or whatever, come to my lunches, come to my events, like last year I ran an event, Black Friday for Black businesses. And I kid you not, I voice memoed everybody who signed up, asking them like, what do you want to hear? What do you want to know? Like, who do you want to connect? Out of like, I think it was, gosh, a number of presenters. There were a lot of Black business owners presenting their businesses. That was tremendous, like wonderful event. And after that, I sure enough email everybody, voice memo everybody, like, doors are open. What do you think? And if it is finances, I would ask them, like, okay, like, what does it look like? Does it look like that you can pay rent if you pay for support that you desire right now? Or is it like, is it something wrong with the offer? Maybe it's something that you don't need, or something that you see like optional. Maybe the offer can be modified specifically for you for a different price. Maybe you don't need like how to like sell from stages because you do podcasting. Maybe you don't want to do podcasting. Like maybe we can remove that. Maybe you really good at sales but not good at messaging. What do you want and what do you need? I am subconsciously was targeting not necessarily wrong people. Were the right people, but I was aiming at the wrong season because, again, like the imposter syndrome and speaking from that state where, like, well, I can help you to get to X, well, and then realizing that, well, I actually need to work with entrepreneurs who already got to the X, or they're so mentally ready to be at the X point that they will just bet on themselves. Because, like, that happened to me with one of my mentors. We discussed about, I was not really financially ready to commit to myself. And in my business, I was slightly behind for her qualification criteria. But you know what? Mentally, I was so ready and I committed, and I'm so happy that I did. So don't let people get away with a no. Get the data. If you don't get sales, get the marketing data and just rerun your launch again and again. Maybe it's not a sale. Maybe it is 10 podcast episodes that you're going to be guesting, and then somebody else will hear and somebody else will join and somebody else will come. Because like when you allow the universe, God leads you, you step into this awakened awareness, which is absolutely scientific term, when you can see synchronicities, when you can actually see, oh, that's why this launch didn't work, because something better was on the other side. And thank God that launch didn't work, because if it did, I would have never started tapping into hypnotherapy as well, because like, well, like, why would I? Because I enjoyed the strategy, but also like I know God gave me so many gifts that people actually want and need.
Gosh, I love that. And it really does reframe the mindset, because it's very easy for neurodivergents to stay in that negative mindset and have so much focus on themselves, where it's like, well, no, a no is just data. It's giving you information. And then it's down to you really as the business owner in terms of what you want to do with it. And like you've given the example, this, you can turn that into content. You can able to turn that no into a yes, even within and during that sales call, that delivery call. I know that it's something I'm a little bit better at, but I feel like I need to improve. So I'll be taking your tips on that in terms of reframing my mindset. So we talked a little bit about ADHD and money. I want us to kind of tap into ADHD money leaks. What would you say are the most common money leaks you see in ADHDs? Hey, I can't say that right. Let me say that again. What are the most common money leaks that you see in people with ADHD that run a business? So whether it's things like undercharging, inconsistent income, or forgetting invoices, in my survey, a lot of business owners who were self-employed struggled with taxes, processing invoices, all of the admin tasks. They really struggled with that. And for me personally, when I first started my coaching business, I was significantly undercharging because I didn't believe in my worth. And I remember a coach here in the UK, Daniela Guinness or Grennis. I always get people's surnames wrong. And I know she's going to tell me off for it. But Daniela from She's the Boss, she actually got a calculator in the middle of our coaching call and she calculated how much I was charging per hour and what my corporate job was paying me. And she said, Esther, you're better off just staying in your corporate job than running this business because your corporate job is paying you way more than what your coaching business is. Just share some of the common money leaks that you see in ADHDers running their business.
So I think one of the money leaks, and I think it is really applicable for all business owners, but it's when we oversubscribe to the services and technology that we never use and never touch, or we maybe touch one time and we never touch it again. And we forget about those subscriptions, right? And when I was editing my business, which like the obstacle is the way when I was going through a really difficult time in my business, and I was like, you know what, right now I'm paying more for my business than I'm making money. Where do I cut my expenses? And oh my God, like this software for email lists, this software for landing pages, this software for a website, this software for a form, this software for making short videos. And then like, okay, how many of those systems do I actually use? I cut probably 90% of the services that I was using. Like, okay, I'm a software engineer. I know how to work with the code. I can create landing pages myself. Well, literally better landing pages. And they be to the point editing, right? Like, okay, so I don't have time to edit. So the script it is. Like it's not perfect, but it's done. And also like I'm not spending 4 or 5 hours editing like a 30-minute or an hour podcast. And if I have a guest on my podcast, it is for sure an hour and a half. Like I don't have that kind of time. And also like hiring somebody, it's just yeah.
When I joined Jerisha Hawk's program, the first thing she made us do was to get rid of unnecessary subscriptions. I saved over £1,000 in my business, and this is a month. I think it's the first time I've publicly said that I was spending up to £1,000 as a one-person business owner in running my business. And it's a very common thing amongst ADHDers where we oversubscribe to technology, and it's having the balance of efficiency, productivity, maybe where our executive function lacks or where our skills lack, we can rely on technology. But actually, a lot of those tools are not needed at certain parts of the business. So I found that it was way too early in my business for me to need all of those tools. So thank you so much. Are there any other like common money leaks that you want to share? Or would you say that's like the biggest one for neurodivergent business owners?
I think another money leak for neurodivergent people, and it also ties to a money story. We over splurge. Like and maybe it's just me, but we sometimes we always splurge. For me personally, I like to go out, and I didn't realize how much money I spent just on going out. Like nearly, if not every day, multiple times a week when I don't feel like cooking. My lunch didn't perform well. I need to regulate my nervous system at the bar, of course. Like I can't just meditate and like get centered. Like I need a drink, which is the whole another topic for like
For
you know.
another podcast.
Yeah, and because we crave dopamine, and
Mm.
when we know, and especially like I did not come from money, right? Money was scarce, and when I started making money, like even in tech, that was like, okay, let's freaking go. And especially when I was going through a really difficult time in my life when I got divorced, I was like, man, I was going out every day, and it was too unhealthy amount. And I think it is so important for us to actually look at how we enjoy ourselves and really be honest with ourselves. Do I want to go out because I'm happy and I want to celebrate, or because I am trying to nurture that wounded child in me that did not get nourishment at early stage, and I just overcompensate something? Do I need to sit down and actually be with a feeling right now instead of being at the bar or at the restaurant? Like, I mean, you can tune into wealthy energy at any point of time. You don't have to physically be there, or like you can literally schedule your wealthy intunement like as you like, and it doesn't have to be anything expensive. Go to a fancy hotel, sit in the lobby, buy a cup of coffee, and just people watch. So that's that for me. It's a huge money leak too.
That is another great one that you mentioned. In my money and neurodivergent survey, impulse spending and over splurging was one of the biggest pain points for many people. And when I remember when I realized that I impulse spent, it was obviously after years of racking up, thousands and thousands of pounds in debt. But I realized that, like, if I had a bad day or I didn't feel good or I felt disappointed, somebody let me down, I would immediately drive to one of my favorite shopping centers and just splurge like £300-400. It wasn't in my budget. Sometimes I will even use my rent money, to go and just pleasure myself. And I realized that the feeling that kept coming up was a sense of loss of control. And I realized that when I felt disappointed or I had a bad day or I felt stressed or burnt out, I felt like I didn't have control. And therefore, me splurging and treating myself and buying myself something that I liked, even if I didn't have the money for it, it just gave me back control in that moment. So, something that I did, and I'm glad you mentioned it because this does really work, is I then said to myself, okay, instead of spending £300, just spend £100.
Mhm.
And then over time, I would reduce that. Instead of 100, just spend £50. Instead of 50, just spend £20. Just take £20 and go and splurge. And now, really, when I have a bad day, all I need is a chai latte. And that's under like $5.
Mhm.
So these are things that we might see it as small oversubscription or splurging, but it adds up over time and it can really impact the profit of your business. It can impact you sustaining a profitable business over time. And sometimes that's where the burnout comes from. If you're spending all your time on a business and you're not making profits and you're not making that income, or when you are making the income, you're splurging it, you're likely going to burn the business. So you talk a lot about balanced performance. It's a term that I've heard you use a number of times, enhance balanced performance. What does it actually look like in everyday business life for somebody with ADHD? And how does it help us to stay profitable without working ourselves to the ground?
Yeah, I really love this question. So think about how professional athletes train, right? They do work really hard. Professional athletes, they retire early and they have all kinds of like health issues because like the body wears out. But they do have performance time and they do have recovery time. I am not subscribing to this soft life era because it is a myth, right? Like, in order to have soft life, you have to earn it. And before you earn it, you have to really balance your performance. I will give you an example from my business. I would normally get up around 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm in the Pacific Standard Time. A lot of the country will be waking up, where entrepreneurs would be running their operations. I would do my content, I would do my social media, I would do my sales conversations. And then, probably from noon till 4, when it's like dead zone, people actively working, delivering services, running lunches, they're not going to be responding me necessarily directly. So I will go to the beach, I will go enjoy myself, I will go do something for myself, and then from 4 till probably 8, I will like pick up other work. Either it is a client delivery, or it is sales calls, or is it like follow-ups, invoices, like you name it. And that is enhanced performance. Another example of enhanced performance is when you have focus seasons, right? Let's say you work really like you can break your day out into time intervals of focus. You focus, then you rest. You focus, then you rest. Normally, I would recommend probably no more than 4 hours of focus work, and then you let yourself rest for an hour, 2 hours to recuperate, like to, especially if you're switching activities, right? And also, I would highly suggest, I know it's not always possible, but I would have my meeting days when I have my sales calls, when I have meetings with other people, networking, you name it, and my creative work. Because when I'm mixing creative work and meeting work, whether it is client work or sales goals, they don't mash up well together. Because creative work, like I gotta get myself in creative flow, and then as soon as I get into creative flow, like I have time limits because I need to run like meetings. So I would try do my best to separate them out, and then like really honor my capacity, because you can outperform burnout nervous system. You can overperform when your body is not functioning well, because your attention will suffer, your decision making will suffer. You're not going to make really good decisions. You're not going to produce really good work. And at the end of the day, I rather you honor your capacity, like what you can actually do, and do absolutely 100% maximum effort in those windows, and then recover, and then do another maximum effort 100% full speed.
I don't know if you saw me typing. I was taking notes for myself. You shared so many, and what I love about speaking to you is that you're really giving us the business, side of things, but this is very much tailored to neurodivergence, people that have ADHD. And I love what you said about switching, that can actually drain more of our energy and make us less productive. I really like your idea of chunking similar activities together and honoring your capacity. I personally am learning how to, because I can function on overload. My mind can function on overload, but what I've learned is that my body is continuously stressed, and my mind goes 100 miles per hour, but my body's actually at 20, 30 miles per hour. And it's taken me years to know that. And now that I know that, I'm trying to do the work to have a balance. I will regularly wake up at 4 a.m. I'm also a student. 4 o'clock, I'm up. I can't sleep. And I'm the kind of person, well, after 10 minutes, if I can't sleep, I'm waking up, because I just see it as a waste just laying there. But I've found at 4 o'clock in the morning, actually, it's the best time for me to write my assignment. So even if it's like 500 words, I can get it done in an hour, as opposed to trying to do it during the day. And it takes me 3 hours to do with all of the distractions. So really picking activities, at the times that it best suits your capacity, your energy level, is so important for neurodivergent business owners. And I think that's probably a huge thing, that lack of balanced performance. It's probably one of the big factors that's impacting profitability within the business. Because like you said earlier, it's not that we don't know what to do. We generally know what to do. Business owners out here, they're smart, generally they're smart. They know what to do. ADHD is, we have very strong intuition, so we know what needs to be done. It's the doing. So if you're a business owner out there, really take what Eugene has shared, take it serious and take it as something that you implement, because it will really help you long term. This is about long term sustainability of you, the person, right? Because we are our biggest asset, of you, the person, but also your business. So it's the first time I've come across that terminology. And so thank you for sharing that. So I want us to move on to, like, this is quite interesting for me because you've mentioned hypnotherapy and you are a hypnotherapist, and you know, something that I've seen on TV, or there's so much misconceptions around it. I mean, just before the podcast, I mentioned to my husband that, oh, I'm interviewing a guest and we're going to be talking about hypnotherapy, and we're religious people. So he looked at me, he just gave me like the side eye, like, what's Esther getting into? Because this is new to me, but I am hearing a lot more of it in the business space. Can you explain what hypnosis is, what it's not? How
Mhm.
can it help neurodivergent entrepreneurs reduce overwhelm or stop self sabotage and run a more profitable business?
Yeah. So hypnosis is, like the thing is about hypnosis, there's no really like a one strong definition of hypnosis and of trance. But the way I understand hypnosis is a state of enhanced focused attention. It can be achieved through a state of trance when you are present but you are not actively tracking. It's like if you think about when you drive for a long time, let's say it's a road trip, it's not a highway, it's not like there's no traffic, it's just a clear road. You know that road really well. You just drive and then you zone out. Zone out is this state of trance, and hypnotherapy is leveraging this state of trance when you bypassing the critical faculty of your brain, right? When you are not thinking actively what you're going to say or what you're going to do next, and literally tuning in, paying attention to the flow. It's like if we think about it, right? A lot of things we do on the subconscious level, we're breathing subconsciously. We are not paying attention how we're breathing. We're driving subconsciously. We are writing also subconsciously because once you know the skill, like it's just autopilot. But with the hypnotherapy, you can really dive deep into subconscious mind, and hypnosis itself is, it is a therapeutic state where like you can achieve great relaxation. A lot of hypnotherapy techniques, they use progressive muscle relaxation, which is a really, really good way to just relax your body. If you don't get anything out of hypnosis, you will be really relaxed. Although you don't have to be relaxed to be hypnotized, and it's not a requirement. But also, you can install and operate with different tools. So, for example, one of the techniques that I absolutely love is ego states theory, ego states work. What is an ego state? Ego state is a neural connection that form through your experiences, beginning from the child, from birth, right, until now. Every learning experience will create a neural connection and will create some sort of persona inside of you, because like you maybe notice that you're a little different when you are speaking on stage or on the podcast than when you talk to your husband or when you work with your clients. And those all different ego states, we all have younger ego states, we all have mature ego states, we have resourceful ego states, wounded ego states. And with hypnosis, you can bypass the critical faculty and actually start talking to different part of yourself to start healing and fine tuning yourself. And not only that, you can also enhance your skill set. Let's say you went through a coaching program, right? And like Jerisha is an amazing coach, right? I work with her as well. And we know that just knowing a strategy, knowing certain things is not simply enough, but it creates a newer connection. But you can actually cultivate the ego state that is responsible for your messaging, for your sales, for your strategy. You can create executive counsel that will advise you in a way you, and then you just watch for synchronicities, and like your attention will shift. You all of a sudden you see in your field on, like, I don't know, social media, or maybe you come across people that you actually need to get the information that you need, or get a clue where to go, how to flow in that particular thing. But also, right, hypnotherapy, it can be such an amazing tool with not just with business operation. Like, I use hypnotherapy specifically, and I cannot prescribe anything to anybody, but for me personally, with pain, let's say I have a headache, instead of taking a pill, I can put myself in a trance and use specific pain management technique, and my headache goes away in like probably 30-40 minutes, which is exactly the same time as if I took a medication. And I don't have chemicals in my body, and like my I feel well, because you like when you focusing and talking to those parts, right, that is responsible for pain. Like, again, there's a study, I don't want to misquote anything, but like one of the psychiatrists suggested that what you can treat with the painkillers, you can possibly probably treat with hypnosis. That there are so many studies. I wish I had studies in front of me, because I don't like just speaking out of the air. But this is hypnotherapy, like really diving into your subconscious mind and addressing and putting yourself in a more resourceful state. And when you come out of the trance, when you come out of a hypnotherapy session, is I would recommend everybody to debrief and also journal, because you have so many downloads from the subconscious mind. And sometimes you need conscious mind to actually actively pay attention to the downloads or like feelings that you receive in the hypnotherapy session.
Wow, thank you so much for breaking that down, because hypnotherapy is very new to me. And I came across it when I was considering medication for ADHD. And I thought, okay, Esther, just be open to learn what is available, and then do your research and kind of decide for yourself and pray about it to see what kind of works. So that's how I came across it. So when I heard you mention it, I thought, okay, Eugene's going to be the best person for me to ask about this. So thanks for breaking that down. Eugene, we're running out of time. So I don't know what your time capacity is like now. We've got the minimal viable lifestyle question to ask.
Yeah.
And then just to talk about like therapy, like access to therapy. And then that's it. Should I finish those questions, or
Yeah,
do you want
why
me?
not?
Okay, cool. Okay. And I'm going to stop interjecting at every point, but I'm just really enjoying. I feel like I'm having a conversation and forgetting that it's a podcast. So I am definitely going to be following you. I look forward to learning more about hypnosis through your content, because I know you talk about that. So another thing that no, let me start again. So one of the biggest challenges for ADHD entrepreneurs is protecting their energy while trying to grow a profitable business. From your clinical and coaching experience, what does minimal value lifestyle look like? And how can a neurodivergent business owner use this to set non-negotiable goals for themselves or prevent burnt out and build a business that will last, which is what I want to do. Like me wanting to come back into business, I don't want to build the business like I did in 2018 to 2023. I'm really taking my time with it. So essentially, what advice would you give me in adopting that minimal viable lifestyle?
Yeah. So, minimal viable business model. This is something that I heard from another clinical psychologist who works with ADHD. people who were diagnosed with ADHD or think that they have ADHD or have symptoms of ADHD. So basically, what it is, I kind of put a spin on it. She started with a minimum viable day. I put a spin on minimum viable business model. Viable business model is when you understand what are your non-negotiable, because we are doing a lot. If we had all the time and resources in the world, we would be on every single social media platform. We would be running all the podcasts, all the YouTubes, all the social media, all the launches, all the offer suites, right? But really understand what makes money right now. What, like, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you will go out of business. What are those points? And focus, prioritize them 100%. For me, for example, it is connected with people in the DMs, whether I want it or not. For me, it is creating content, whether I want it or not, moderately, but consistently engage with other creators, because this is how I grow my audience. And you actually found me through another creator, through Jerisha, when I was engaging with her content. This is minimum viable like system. And I will, it's not about not doing anything else. It's about like understanding your priorities. And when my energy is low, either I'm going through a grief or I'm going through just a bad day. Today was like low energy day for me. So guess what? I did not engage with like 20 creators, posted 20 comments, like responding to 100 stories. I just did bare minimum, what felt in the flow. And also I had to deal with some of the really important paperwork for very big clients. So it's all legit. So it's a big process. So that's minimum viable business model. And your minimum viable business model will actually grow. And then you, at some point in your business, you will decide which minimum viable activities can be delegated to someone else, because you, as a CEO, you want to work yourself out of operations as soon as possible so you can actually lead with the vision. And when you have a strong team, and again, you start hiring minimum viable team, because I'm not a fan of over hiring, because we're seeing what over hiring did through from 2020 to 2024. We have a lot of layoffs. We have a significant economic impact. And this is what the business model, this is what a lot of business coaches were teaching. Hire before you're ready. Absolutely freaking not. Hire when you know your standardized procedures of operations, and hire minimum viable team, and then extend them, and then let your team work themselves out of their role so they can lead. And then before you know it, you actually build an empire, if it is your desire, right? If it is your desire. But it all starts with understanding your non-negotiable. How, and when I say non-negotiable, how you make money. Without X, I won't make money. Let's say if I don't go to work, I won't make money. So going to work is probably my minimum viable activity for my life. Showing up for a client delivery call is minimum viable activity for my business, or my clients will ask for a refund, or like it will be a scam. I'm not delivering on my promise. But being on, I don't know, let's say being on TikTok, being on Facebook, being on Threads every single day, is it minimum viable option for me? I'm still evaluating those things, right? And like also understanding where do I have to be. Like for me, LinkedIn has been a platform for so many years, but now I'm seeing like interesting shift with Instagram and other platforms, and I'm reevaluating constantly. And I also allow myself time and freedom to experiment and create and just learn from from the experience, but this is minimum viable business model because we do a lot. We do it way more than we actually have to do. And it's not to grow our business, it's actually to make ourselves feel safe and create illusion of control that we're actually working. But if it's not working, or if you can do something without X, Y, and Z, and you don't see the immediate return on investment or long-term return on investment, either reevaluate or cut it out.
Yeah, and that just it's just simplifying things, isn't it? Just making
Yeah.
it simple. As you were talking, my non-negotiable or my minimal viable activity for me right now is podcasting. I had a recent grieve, and to be honest, with all of the pain and emotions I was going through, podcasting was the only thing that would make me want to get up. It was the only thing that I could look forward to. I know from the past where I've done my coaching business, most of my clients found me on Instagram. I did take a break from Instagram. I took like 18 months break off Instagram. I'm now back on Instagram, but I'm mainly on LinkedIn and I kind of post content every now and then. But like you said, it's just testing, having given yourself the time to test the data and to be okay with it, to not be so attached, and then let the data tell you whether it's working or not. But I really like how that model simplifies things for business owners, especially people that have ADHD, because actually, if you're focusing on the important things, then you're going to have more energy to show up in your business to serve your clients. And in turn, you're going to make more profit and make more money in your business. So we've shared so many tips, right? So many tips. And I know the ADHD brain, they'll probably have like 10 pages of notes from this podcast, which we welcome because I have literally bullet points as Eugene has been speaking on, right? Do this, do that. For the ADHD business owner who's listening right now and they feel drained, they feel behind, they are stuck in survival mode, what is the simplest first step that they can take today to protect their energy and start moving towards a profitable and sustainable business?
Well, the number one step is reassure your safety. And I'm not meaning it in the woo woo psychological form. Can you pay your rent? Can you buy your food? Can you pay your medical bills? If not, reassess. Like, do you have a cash injection offer that will sell quickly? Do you need to pick up 9 to 5? Make safety your priority because you cannot heal, you cannot get out of survival mode until you are out of safety. That is non-negotiable. And then after, let's say money is good, you're safe, you have shelter, you have food, you have house, you are okay, then evaluate what is working for you. And when I say working for you, it's not necessarily what is bringing you money. Maybe you have a podcast that brings you visibility and it's a long-term asset. So maybe God is leading you to be next Mel Robbins and like be in podcasting business. You're like, who knows? Maybe you meant to sell from stage and you make your income that way, right? Just be open to synchronicities. And also, it's important to treat business like really take a step back, dissociate yourself from your business and look at your business and see what is working, what is not, unemotionally. Again, this is why I'm adding hypnotherapy, because when you actually can dissociate and like make your business look small so you can actually look through many lenses and see what is not working, it's easy for you non-judgmentally to make a decision and then pivot if you need to. And like when I say pivot, it's not necessarily burn your business down and create something new, even though sometimes it is the way. Like maybe pivot your strategy, maybe pivot your messaging, maybe pivot how you treat Instagram, for example. Start talking about like hypnosis from fun perspective. Start making funny videos about like business and hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and then create reels and content where people feel heard, like really that you hear them, and then dive deeper on your podcast, drive them to your podcast, and then just trust the rest of the process. So like really take a safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, 'cause I was in that space where, like, I don't know how to pay rent. Like, I'm
Yeah.
about to get eviction notice. Like, no jokes. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not exaggerating. Like, why can't I get downloads about my business strategy? Like, because like I'm going to be freaking evicted like next month. It's like there's no money coming in. Like, get safety, get contracts, opportunities, like low ticket offer, like whatever, whatever, how you can create safety right now, and then you can heal, and then you can look at your business, and then you can evolve.
Yeah. I'm so glad you shared that. So, guys, reassure your safety. Number one. Number two, evaluate what is working for you. Look at your business from the outside in and pivot if you need to. Being a business owner in today's world, it's not easy. Like, I know so many people want it because they want the freedom, but it's not easy. And Eugene has shared some real challenges that I know a lot of listeners will relate to. So, if there's one thing, one simple step that you can do to protect your energy and to create a business that's sustainable, follow those three steps. Make sure that at least one of those three things are in place. And if you can imagine, as a financial coach, I'm supposed to be teaching other people about finances, and yet I am having my own financial struggle. It's the worst place that you can be mentally. And so I know that for me to show up as a coach that will add value to my clients, I have to feel safe in my finances. I have to have my four walls in place. So thank you so much, because for neurodivergence, safety is first. That self-regulation and that whole thing of calming our nervous system, it has to take priority. So thank you so much. I know that you're big on therapy, and one of the reasons why I created my survey was because I realized that as a neurodivergent, there's only so many things that I can do to change my situation, right? I can manage my stress level, I can reframe my mindset. But you and I know that a lot of the challenges are systemic. You know, they're on a wider level. Policies have to be changed, organizations need to change their culture and whatnot. So, what's one systemic change you believe would make the biggest difference for neurodivergent entrepreneurs, especially around maybe therapy and support and that kind of thing?
Well, one thing I do believe that we need more aware therapists from both perspective, aware therapists who are experts in or well versed in neurodivergency, and also culturally aware, because a lot of people ask me, like, why your majority of your business owners that you work are Black and Latino entrepreneurs, and like that ties to my personal story. But recently I was thinking about why not, because we can't just rely on minoritized communities that they will just provide all of the resources for themselves, right? We need therapists who are well culturally aware how to work with Black, Latino, and other people from other cultural backgrounds. We can't expect minoritized communities just like and minoritized communities, they always were creating resources for themselves, by the way. Like that's a part of that is a strength. But also, if we want to really make a difference in the society, we have to expand the cultural education, because if we only if like let's if we look at the data, there are not enough Black therapists, like just not enough. And
Yeah.
then when we go to professors, right, like
Mm.
psychiatry professors, therapy professors, and the number is smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, even as like
Mm.
is it as even as a Black therapist, like are you being trained beyond your personally lived experiences? And like, for example, with my husband, his experiences as a Black person is a little different. And so, like, you know what? Sometimes I can relate to the narrative that
Mm,
society creates around my ethnicity and around my identity. So,
mm,
because like, yes, we like genuinely people resonate with people who are in close proximity to them.
yeah.
But I think I was gifted such a unique opportunity to work with entrepreneurs, business owners with many different backgrounds, specifically Black and Latino entrepreneurs, just to actually see the gap.
Mm,
And the gap is not that hard to close. Just be open to education, be open to listen, be open to learn the history, be open to learn and listen non-judgmentally to people's experiences, and
mm,
ask how your experience with me would be beneficial for you so I can enhance your superpower, because y'all have all superpowers. Instead of me telling you what to do, instead of me saving you, I'm not Jesus, I can save anybody. Huge problem, especially in Western societies.
as somebody who is not black, that's able to speak so confidently and articulate themselves so well on that is amazing. You're right. There is a cultural gap when it comes to therapy. I mean, this has nothing to do with coaching or business, but in the UK, they're now making it compulsory to add within the hairdressing curriculum about black hair, because hairdressers are being qualified to be hairdressers, but they cannot serve black clients. So I cannot walk into a white hair salon to get my hair done. I have to go to a black hairstylist. And so that cultural awareness is really important in our day and age. And I'm glad that you touched on that intersection, because there are so many different intersections of therapy, and being a neurodivergent, whether it's age, culture, race. So I'm glad that you touched on that something needs to change academically, something needs to change within the profession. And it just takes people caring enough or wanting to be curious enough to learn more about that culture and to serve them. So thank you for sharing that. So, Eugene, this podcast has been amazing, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. This is a question I ask all of my guests, which is, what is your neurodivergent advantage? Some people call it, what is your superpower? I call it neurodivergent advantage. It basically just means a quality that you see in yourself as a strength in your life work, in your finances or business.
So for me, I see a goal and I don't see the obstacles. And
Mm,
as long as I see the goal, and this is like so many examples, like I wanted to move to another country from Russia. I was just like following my dream, like visualizing, really working with God, working with the creator, and like really being open to this like awaken awareness and see the signs and synchronicities. The same with like when I decided to start my tech career, right? That was also like, yeah, I just want quick big money fast, and like really building my identity, because as a psychologist I was not technical. I was like, what is that? And now being able to build mobile apps from scratch, it's just amazing. And the same with business, right? Because Esther, like 22, like in the end of 2023, 2024 kicked my ass so much. And if I didn't see the goal where I'm going, I would have
mm.
quit, because listen, I am tired. And my superpower, I see where I'm going and it gives me energy and hope.
I love that. And you really come across as that person who, even if there are obstacles, they're not going to stand in your way. And that's one of the qualities that I see in your content. I really do see that come out in your content. I hear that come out in your podcast. And so when I listen to you, you also encourage me to see the go and to, yes, the obstacles might be there, but it doesn't have to get in the way. So thank you for being yourself, and thank you for blessing the world with your neurodivergent advantage. So Eugene, where can people find you and learn more about your work?
So people can find me on Instagram at Eugene.Berezin. People can find me on LinkedIn. People can find me on Facebook. And although Facebook is a little bit more personal leaning, but like, hey, you if you want to see me a little bit more personal or part of me, like it's open, it's welcome. I do have Heart and Profit podcast on all of the platforms, and I recently started a new YouTube channel specifically for that podcast because it's about time, and it's at Heart and Profit Podcast. Yeah, that with me. I like hearing from people. Send me a DM. I promise you, I won't pitch slap you. Like I will start a conversation, but like if I see like you don't have to all chill. Maybe you will be a guest on my podcast, or I will be a guest on your podcast because listen, I'm enjoying this tour. Like this last few months, like it's been tour podcast tour, so I enjoy it.
I think it's great. I think I've seen you. There's been a few other content that I've listened to where it's been interviews with other people, and I really do enjoy just the diverse conversations that you're having within your network and community. So, guys, I will drop all of Eugene's links in the show notes. Be sure to give him a follow and just share with both of us what you learned from today. And yeah, how did today's podcast make you feel? I'd love to know, how did it make you feel and what are you going to do about it now that you've listened and we've shared all this wealth of knowledge? So, Eugene, thank you so much for being an amazing guest on today's podcast episode. And I'd love to have you back again. I feel like there's so many topics that we can deep dive in further. So I appreciate your time being here today.
I would love to be back. And my invitation to you, come to my podcast. I mean it absolutely sincerely. I would like to have you too.
Oh, thank you so much. I can't wait for us to make that happen. Thank you so much.
Of course.